Let me tell you something that most people never hear at the right time. You are not the problem. You've just spent too much of your life seeing yourself through the eyes of people who couldn't see your worth. They labeled your quiet strength as weakness, your sensitivity as fragility, your delay as failure. But deep down, you know there's more in you, not because someone told you, because you feel it. This is your wake-up call. After this, you will not walk the same, you will not speak the same, and you will not underestimate yourself again. Before the world can ever see what you're capable of, you have to see it first. Not in some half-hearted, maybe if I get lucky kind of way. I mean, truly see yourself. Unfiltered, undiminished, and unapologetically real. Because the world will always try to hand you a mirror that distorts who you are. It will reflect your insecurities louder than your strengths. It will magnify your flaws and shrink your power. And if you're not anchored in your own self-awareness, you'll start believing a version of you that was never yours to begin with. So many people live their whole lives reacting to how others see them. They adjust, they shrink, they overcompensate, not based on truth, but based on perception. And here's the tragedy. The more you chase their approval, the more you lose your identity. You become a collection of performances, a highlight reel, a watered-down version of the greatness you were born with. But I'm not here to tell you to believe in yourself like it's some vague motivational cliché. I'm telling you to get serious about discovering who you actually are. Strip away the noise, the labels, the comparisons, the guilt, the shame. Look at what's underneath all of that. You'll find someone who's already survived more than most people know. Someone who's already overcome things that should have broken them. Someone who's still standing, even if they're standing quietly. That matters. You matter. And don't wait for people to clap for you before you see your worth. Some won't. Some can't. Some are too insecure to acknowledge what's good in you because it reminds them of what they haven't faced in themselves. That's not your problem. Your job is to stop outsourcing your value to people who never had the eyes to recognize it in the first place. Because when you see yourself clearly, you stop asking for permission to be powerful. You stop needing to be chosen. You stop trying to prove things to people who already decided they'd never understand you. You just move. You take up space. You walk into rooms differently. You speak with clarity. You act with intent. Because you're no longer wondering, am I enough? You know, you've always been more than enough. You were just trying to meet standards built for someone else's limitations. Let me tell you this, your quiet dreams matter just as much as loud ambition. Your intuition is not a weakness, it's a superpower. Your story might not fit the mold, and that's exactly what makes it powerful. The fact that you're still here, still breathing, still willing to grow. That makes you dangerous to every voice that ever tried to keep you small. But here's the part you've got to own. If you don't claim your identity, the world will assign one to you. One that's easier to digest. One that makes them comfortable. They'll label you according to your past, according to your failures, according to your silence. But none of those things define you, unless you let them. And I get it. It's hard to see yourself clearly when all your life you've been told to be less emotional, less ambitious, less bold, less complicated. You've been told your dreams are too big, your standards are too high, your voice is too loud. But what if none of that was ever true? What if what they called too much was actually your calling trying to break through? You want to stop underestimating yourself? Then start by telling the truth to yourself. Tell the truth about your strengths, about your resilience, about your brilliance. Stop pretending you don't care. Stop acting like you don't have something to offer. Stop playing small just to make other people comfortable. The world doesn't benefit from your hesitation. It benefits from your clarity. And the more clearly you see yourself, the less anyone can manipulate how you feel about yourself. That's where your real power is. Not in being liked, not in being validated, but in being grounded. Because when you're grounded, you're unshakable. You can be overlooked, underestimated, misunderstood, and still rise. You're not here to be seen, you're here to see yourself fully and then act like it. You don't need the world to believe in you before you start, you just need to believe enough to begin. Let's get something straight. Self-doubt is not a personality trait, it's a habit. One that gets built little by little every time you break a promise to yourself. Every time you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," and you don't. Every time you tell yourself you're not good enough and you sit in that lie like it's the truth. Doubt doesn't appear out of nowhere. It grows in the gap between your potential and your discipline. And if you want to silence that voice in your head that says, "I can't," then you've got to start showing up like someone who can. People love to chase motivation. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel confident. But motivation is emotional, and emotions lie. 1 minute they're up, the next they're gone. You can't build a powerful life on something as fragile as mood. What you need is self-discipline, the ability to move regardless of how you feel, to execute even when it's uncomfortable, to take the next step even when the whole staircase isn't lit. See, discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, most of the time no one will see it. But it's the thing that builds real confidence, not the kind you perform, the kind you become. Because every time you follow through, every time you push when you could have quit, you're proving something to yourself. You're building trust, and self-trust is the antidote to self-doubt. You don't need to convince the world you're great, you need to convince you. And the way you do that is through action. Consistent, intentional, disciplined action. Not when it's easy. Especially not just when it's easy, but when it's hard, when it's inconvenient, when no one's watching and there's no applause. Because the version of you you're trying to become, that version is built in silence, in early mornings, in late nights, in just 5 more minutes, in "I'll do it anyway." You want to feel powerful? Keep promises to yourself. That's it. That's the formula. Do what you said you were going to do, even when the feeling that made you say it is gone. That's how you stack evidence that you are not weak, that you are not lost, that you are not some broken thing just trying to make it through the day. No, you are someone who takes control, someone who is becoming undeniable. But that version of you isn't created by chance. It's forged through discipline. And it's not about perfection. Forget that. It's about consistency. You won't win every battle, and that's okay. But if you keep showing up, keep pushing forward, keep training that muscle, eventually doubt won't have anywhere to live, because there won't be room for it in the life you're building. You can't hate yourself into success, but you can outwork your fear. You can't always control the voice that whispers, "What if I fail?" But you can choose to act anyway, and when you do, that voice gets quieter, and your voice, your real one, gets stronger. Understand this: confidence is not something you're born with. It's something you earn through repetition, through sacrifice, through the discipline of doing hard things over and over again, until hard things become normal and fear becomes irrelevant. You want to stop doubting yourself? Then stop abandoning yourself. Stop bailing when it gets tough. Stop being loyal to your excuses and start being loyal to your future, because you can't think your way into belief. You AC your way into belief. That's the truth no one wants to say. But when you live it, when you really live it, self-doubt becomes background noise. It's there, but it doesn't lead. It doesn't decide. You do. So if you want to kill the doubt, you don't need more hype. You need more discipline. Do what's necessary. Do what's hard. Do what builds you. Because in the end, it's not about what you feel. It's about what you finish. Failure is one of those words that makes people flinch. It carries weight, shame, embarrassment. It's the thing we try to avoid, the thing we try to hide. But what if I told you that failure is not the enemy? It's the fuel. What if I told you that everything you're trying to become lives on the other side of what you're afraid to experience? The reason so many people stay stuck isn't because they're not capable. It's because they've been taught to fear failure more than regret. They'd rather play small than risk falling. They'd rather be safe than tested. But you don't grow where you're safe. You grow where you stretch, where you're challenged, where you fall flat and decide to get back up anyway. And here's the truth. No one gets out of this life untouched by failure. Not one person who's done anything meaningful has avoided it. The difference is, some people use failure as a stopping point and others use it as a starting line. You get to choose which one you are. Every setback you faced, every time you messed up, every time you got rejected, every door that slammed in your face, that wasn't the end of your story. That was a lesson, a redirection, a refining fire. And when you start seeing it that way, you stop hiding from it. You stop internalizing it. You stop saying, I failed, and you start saying, I learned. But you've got to make that shift. You've got to reframe the way you think about falling short, because failure only defines you if you let it. You fail a test and you tell yourself you're not smart. You get rejected and you decide you're not worthy. You try something and it doesn't work, so you assume you're not meant for it. That's the lie. The truth is, failure is feedback. It's data. It's information that tells you what to adjust, not who you are. You don't get stronger by lifting what's easy. You get stronger by facing resistance. It's the same with life. Every challenge you've hit, every loss you've taken, every moment that felt like defeat, it was all shaping you. It was all sharpening your focus, your resilience, your discipline. That's why failure hurts. It has to. Growth demands discomfort. But here's what happens when you stop fearing it. You get dangerous. You take more risks. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop holding back your voice, your ideas, your energy. Because failure doesn't scare you anymore. Stagnation does. Wasting potential does. Living small when you know you were built for more does. You want to stop underestimating yourself? Then stop treating your past failures like evidence against your worth. They're not. They're proof that you tried, that you showed up, that you cared enough to swing even when you weren't sure you'd hit. And most people never even step up to the plate. So the fact that you failed, that means you're in the game. That means you're doing the work. That means you're already miles ahead of the people still sitting on the sidelines, criticizing players they don't have the guts to become. Every successful person you admire has a trail of failures behind them. Not one, not two, a trail. What separates them is that they didn't let those failures convince them to quit. They let those failures prepare them to win. And that's what you've got to decide. Are you going to let the fall define you or fuel you? Are you going to let one moment, one mistake, one wrong turn convince you that you don't have what it takes? Or are you going to dig in, get back up, and use what you learned to come back sharper, better, stronger? This isn't about pretending failure feels good. It doesn't. It stings. It humbles. But that sting doesn't have to stop you. You're not fragile. You're not broken. You're becoming. And part of becoming means getting it wrong sometimes. That's not weakness. That's training. So the next time you fail, don't shut down. Don't spiral. Don't run. Look it in the eye and say, thank you. Thank it for the lesson. Thank it for the refinement. Thank it for the clarity. And then get up and move again. Because failure isn't the end of your story. It's the fuel that lights the next chapter. People will look at where you are right now and think they've got your whole story figured out. They'll see your silence and call it weakness. They'll see your struggles and call it failure. They'll see how long it's taking and assume it means you'll never get there. But let me tell you something. Your story isn't over. It's just underestimated. And that's fine. Let them misread the chapter you're in. Let them count you out early, because what they don't know is that you're still in the middle of the fight, still writing, still rising. See, most people only know how to celebrate the finish line. They cheer when they see trophies, when they see headlines, when everything looks polished. But real transformation, that happens in the hidden places. In the nights where no one's watching, and you're still choosing to keep going. In the quiet mornings where you're building your belief from scratch. That's where greatness starts. And if you're there right now, if you're in the messy middle, in the part of the story where everything feels uncertain, I need you to understand that this is not the end. This is the part they'll talk about later when your breakthrough finally hits. But you've got to keep moving, because the world isn't always patient. It wants to define you quickly and put you in a box. And if you're not strong enough to hold your own narrative, you'll start to live in someone else's version of your life. You'll shrink, thinking your moment has passed. You'll settle, thinking maybe you were aiming too high. You'll hesitate, thinking maybe they were right when they said you weren't built for more. But they don't get to write your story, you do. They don't know what you've survived. They don't know the nights you pushed through when it would have been easier to quit. They don't know the times you had to fake confidence just to keep walking. They don't see the battles inside your head that you've already won, and they sure don't know what kind of fire you're still carrying. So don't let their underestimation become your limitation. Just because they can't see it yet doesn't mean it isn't real. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to have it all figured out to be worthy. Sometimes your strength shows up in the form of still standing when everything around you is falling apart. Sometimes your potential doesn't scream. It simmers. It waits. It develops in silence until it's ready to explode. So when they underestimate you, let them. When they doubt your timing, let them. When they look at your current struggle and mistake it for your final state, let them. Because one day the very thing they dismissed in you is going to be the reason they remember your name. Not because you needed to prove it to them, but because you proved it to yourself. Understand this. People rarely recognize greatness while it's in progress. They only respect it after it arrives. And that's why you have to believe before they do. You have to commit before you're celebrated. You have to keep building, even when it feels like no one sees you. That's the mindset that turns pressure into purpose. There's something powerful about knowing your value when others don't. It keeps you grounded, it keeps you dangerous, because when they underestimate you, they stop guarding against you, they stop watching. And that's when you strike. Not out of revenge, but out of readiness. You've been preparing for this in silence. Now it's your time. So don't rush the story. Don't edit your struggle just to make others comfortable. Own it. Every delay, every detour, every heartbreak, every disappointment. These aren't the things that make you less. They're the things that make you real. They give your story the kind of depth that people can feel when you speak, when you move, when you show up. And when that moment comes, when your preparation meets the opportunity, everything will change. They'll act surprised. They'll say they never saw it coming, and you'll smile, not because you needed their approval, but because you finally showed the world what you always knew. You were never finished, just underestimated. And now it's time they see it. That voice in your head, it can be brutal. The one that shows up right when you're about to take a step forward. The one that whispers things like, "Who do you think you are?" Or, "You're not ready." Or, "You always mess this up." You know that voice. We all do. It's the inner critic. And the truth is, if someone else talked to us the way we talk to ourselves, we'd never allow it. But somehow we tolerate it when it comes from within. We let it narrate our worth, our potential, our direction, until it convinces us to play small in a life we were born to live fully. You see, the mind is powerful, and if you don't take control of it, it will run wild. That inner critic is just a pattern. It's been built over time by fear, by comparison, by past experiences that tried to teach you your value was conditional. But just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's right. Just because it's loud doesn't mean it's true. And here's what you need to understand. If you don't start challenging that voice, you'll start becoming it. But you can flip the script. You can build something stronger, something louder. You can create an inner coach. The one who doesn't let you off the hook, but also doesn't tear you down. The one who speaks with clarity, not cruelty. The one who says, "This is hard, but you've done harder." And, "You've made a mistake, but that doesn't make you a mistake." The inner coach isn't about sugarcoating reality. It's about reminding you of your capacity to grow through it. This shift doesn't happen overnight. You've got to catch yourself in the act. Every time you catch that inner critic talking, ask yourself, would I say this to someone I care about? Would I say it to a friend who was struggling, trying, learning? If the answer is no, then why do you say it to yourself? Why do you think beating yourself down is the way to rise? It's not. Growth isn't driven by shame, it's driven by belief. And belief starts when you train your own voice to become your ally, not your enemy. You need to speak to yourself like someone who matters, someone who's worth effort, someone who's worthy of patience. Because you are. And here's where people get it twisted. They think being kind to yourself makes you soft. They think self-compassion is weakness. It's not. It's strategy. Because when you become your own source of strength, of focus, of encouragement, you stop depending on outside validation to keep moving. That's how you become unshakable. Think about elite athletes. They don't get coached with sarcasm or ridicule. They're pushed, yes. They're challenged, yes. But great coaches speak to potential. They see what's possible and they speak it out loud. That's what your inner voice needs to become. Not a judge, but a guide. So how do you build that inner coach? It starts with intention. You start by choosing what you repeat. Instead of, "I'm not good enough," try, "I'm figuring this out." It sounds simple, but repetition matters. What you tell yourself daily becomes your default belief. So build a default that strengthens you. You start catching your negative spirals before they take over. You notice when you're catastrophizing, when you're making one mistake into your whole identity. You interrupt it. You breathe. You reframe. And then you move. And when things go wrong, and they will, you don't go to war with yourself. You get honest, you get curious, and you get back to work. You don't need perfection to believe in yourself. You need progress. You need to see that you're someone who keeps showing up, keeps adjusting, keeps fighting. When the inner critic starts yelling again, remind yourself you've survived worse. You've rebuilt before. You've figured things out you never thought you could. You are not fragile. You are capable. And just because the voice in your head has been conditioned to doubt, doesn't mean you have to obey it. There will always be noise, doubt, fear, insecurity, but you don't have to let that noise become your soundtrack. You get to choose who you listen to. You get to train your mind like a muscle. And the more you build that inner coach, the more resilient, more focused, more dangerous you become. Therefore, the world can throw whatever it wants at you. But when you've got your own back, when your inner voice fights for you instead of against you, there's not a storm out there that can stop you. You'll never feel completely ready. Let's just start there. You're not going to wake up one day and suddenly feel like all your doubts are gone, all your flaws are fixed, and now you're finally worthy of that next level. That moment doesn't come. And if you're waiting for it, you'll wait forever. Readiness is not a prerequisite for stepping into your life. The truth is, the people you see out there doing bold things, leading, creating, succeeding, they didn't wait to feel ready. They just decided to move anyway. They stepped like they belonged before they had proof that they did. And that's the shift. That's what it takes, because most of the time, the only thing standing between where you are and where you want to be is the belief that you don't deserve to be there yet. You disqualify yourself before you even start. You shrink in rooms where your voice belongs. You downplay your ideas. You hesitate to speak up, to go for the opportunity, to raise your hand, because deep down, you're still waiting for someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, okay, you're ready now. But let me tell you something. They're not coming. Nobody's coming to give you permission. You give that to yourself. You don't earn your place in the room by being flawless. You earn it by having the courage to step in before the world says you're qualified. And here's what's wild. When you do that, when you walk like you belong, before you have the title, the validation, the applause, people start to believe it too. Confidence doesn't come after achievement, it comes before. It comes when you stop tying your identity to perfection and start tying it to purpose. You belong, not because you're perfect, but because you're becoming. Because you're willing to step in and grow in real time. I get it. There's fear. Fear of being exposed. Fear of failing publicly. Fear of not measuring up. But let's flip that. What if the real failure is staying where you are? What if the real danger is playing so small that you never even give yourself the chance to rise? You don't get stronger by sitting on the sidelines waiting for clarity. You get stronger by stepping into the game, even if your voice shakes and your hands aren't steady. You learn faster when you're in motion. You build belief by doing, by collecting evidence that says, I can handle this. And you will. The more you step up, the more you expand. the more you walk like you're meant to be there, the more your body, your mind, your energy starts to match that intention. That's the power of embodiment. You train yourself through action. You don't just tell yourself you're capable, you show yourself. Over and over. Don't mistake humility for hiding. Don't confuse inexperience with insignificance. You can be new and still be needed. You can be learning and still be worthy. You can walk into a space and add value even if you're still figuring things out. That's what growth looks like. That's what leadership looks like, not perfection. Presence. So, if there's something calling you higher, into a bigger role, a bigger life, a new challenge, stop waiting for your nerves to calm down. Stop waiting for that magic moment when everything feels safe. That moment is a myth. You take the step first. You build the courage on the way. And every time you do, you raise the ceiling of what you believe is possible for you. Because you belong at the table. You belong in the conversation. You belong on that stage, in that business, in that room, in that relationship, in that life. Not when you have everything figured out, but now, as you are. Imperfect, hungry, evolving. You don't step up because you're already enough. You step up because you're ready to become enough, through the fire, through the learning, through the discomfort. You step up because you're done waiting for a green light from the world. You are the green light. And once you start moving like you belong, everything changes. Your choices, your voice, your presence, your impact, it all shifts. Because when you stop waiting for permission, the world has no choice but to adjust to the version of you that decided to show up.